Are you hearing that? What do we want, dead cops? This is getting ugly. New York City protesters chanting for dead cops. You heard me right. You heard them right. You hear my next guest say the mayor of this fine city isn't making it any better. To the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association, Ed Mullins, who says that Mayor Bill de Blasio is acting like, his words here, a total nincompoop. Many have argued that he has thrown cops under the bus. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think that the mayor has been very divisive in the issue between community and police. And in a role of leadership, he really should be trying to build the bridges that we now see is becoming a national problem, and having a platform of New York City, which in my view is the capital of the world. He has the ability to set a stage to bring peace and harmony across the country by working with communities and police. And instead, what he's doing is taking an anti-police position.
He says he's not taking an anti-police position. He says he'd be blind, I'm paraphrasing here, to not see that what's been going on here has been going on a while, that it's centuries in the making, that famous line about racism and all, going back to slavery. What did you make of that? Well,
I think he needs to look at the history books. I think that to say that this has been going on for decades and for a while, there is no doubt that the American people understand that there is a problem with race and racism within this country. But the people who are here today, in today's world, didn't create that problem. In fact, most of the people that are living in this world today have tried to fix that problem. This nation...
You have a 60% minority police force, right?
That's pretty much correct.
And the officer who was involved, the sergeant in charge, in this incident that got all the protests in New York, was herself an African-American.
Right.
So what do you think is going on when the mayor says stuff like that, when he gets backing from the likes of Al Sharpton, if not instigating, when the president and the attorney general of the United States say they think a federal probe is warranted because it's pretty clear that the grand jury indictment, lack of indictment, I should say, wasn't what we liked? That's got to bug you.
Well, it does, because if you look at this president, was elected twice in this country with an overwhelming majority of not just black voters. He was elected by American voters of all colors. So if that's not a step in the right direction toward improving race relations.
So what is de Blasio up to?
Why
would the mayor say that?
I just think that sometimes either he's getting bad advice or he just doesn't understand what it is to be a leader and how to bring people together. It's got to be one of the two, because we're in a situation that's been going on for weeks, and there's a great deal that's been lacking.
Now, when you, for obviously justifiable reasons, because you can't believe what's going on, you call him a nincompoop, your counterpart at the PBA threw him under the bus. When it comes time for negotiations on contracts, he's the mayor. You think he'll stick it back to you?
You know, Neil, there's a lot more important issues on the table than contracts. This country is the greatest country in the world, and when people can't walk freely, and when the police that provide that freedom are being called upon to be killed, and we have a mayor that sits by, you know, idle and doesn't really take action.
He did not condemn those remarks.
No, he hasn't.
No one in authority has.
He hasn't. There's a bigger picture that's facing his nation than the contracts of a couple of NYPD unions.
Well, good for you. I'm proud of that. I mentioned that because you recognize the business reality there. But Ed, let me ask you this. Do you think that what he's trying to say is that everyone of minority descent, everyone of African-American descent is just treated differently here? The story told about his son of mixed race. And do minority members of your force, of the police force, feel the same way? Or are they just as mad as you?
I just spoke to an African-American police officer on my way to the studio who displayed total disgust in his mayor and how the members of the NYPD are being treated. And here is a sergeant, a police officer, who is an African-American police officer in full uniform that's explaining the negativity that he's feeling by this mayor. And this officer is out there in a uniform putting his life on the line for any person in this city. It has nothing to do with race.
You know, cops die in the line of duty, and many said they don't want this mayor at any of those funerals. What do you think of that?
I think it's a personal choice. I think when we look at what Cardinal Dolan has said today, we need to find peaceful resolutions. We need to find ways to get people to move forward, and I think we should start to take advice from the Cardinal at this point.
But would his presence actually, I'm talking about the mayor's presence at a funeral, actually do more harm than good?
Well, that's a question. It's going to be undetermined at this point. I mean, hopefully there are no more funerals, but each family has to make that decision for themselves.
You're a gutsy guy, Ed Mullins. I mean, even knowing the risk you take speaking out as you did, it says something about the mood, tenor, and tone of the law enforcement community in this fine city, because it is a very difficult city to police, to put it mildly. In the meantime, Sony's